Well, I think it was about last week. I was looking up the history of some of the Curious George characters. It's a show that we watch a lot. I've watched a lot over the years. Very familiar with the Curious George in this house. And it turns out there's a lot of parents who don't like that show. Like they're very vitriolic about it. And I just want to say, in defense of Curious George, that's a good show. Just got to calm down. Like I know you're like, if that monkey was a real kid, I would kill it because he's always destroying things, right? Like all sorts of things.
Probably
And
got
there was also
fleas.
some complaint. Yeah, there's also complaints for like how much money does the man in the yellow hat make that he can live in what's clearly Manhattan in an awesome apartment and have a country home and have no sensible job. I always figured he was like a National Geographic photographer or something like that. And there's also, Chief, how do you say it? Spaghetti. Like he allows
You know?
cats in his kitchen. So why would you eat there? And like, it must be an expensive restaurant.
So
But,
what are you
overall,
complaining about? The monkey made those meatballs.
oh, no, gee. But I just think it's a delightful TV show. It's very comforting.
Is it
I
new?
spend a lot of time
is the
thinking about
issue
the
that
TV
just
shows.
hasn't been updated? Is it like kind of one of those? I haven't seen it. Is it an older? Or is it like old version where the cartoons haven't been sanitized, kind of like with all the
like
politicalness?
yeah, like all PBS shows, it's a melange of 4:2 and 16:9 aspect ratio. So
4-3.
it's had a long run 4:3, whatever it is, and it's not like I'm the count and I know my ratios. Wouldn't that be funny if they had like a character on Sesame Street that was like Ratio Boy? That would be funny.
But so you watch the show, but do you like read the books? What's funny if
We used to read the books.
the
Yeah.
books started in like 1948, and so if you get like the older books, there'll be ones where like the monkeys are smoking, or
Yeah. No, I have noticed that. Yeah, I think like the monkey, like when George goes to Mars, it does have some old characteristics in it, which are not Mars, but he goes to space or whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, they put out new shows every now and then. And, also I'm very familiar with the Curious George Halloween special. I could almost recite that script from memory if anyone's interested,
Yeah.
but I think there's a lot going for that show. So I just wanted to get that out there.
The-
All these people who don't like Curious George can go fuck themselves, as far as I'm concerned.
Wait. How do you stand on Berenstain Bears?
I'm not familiar with that one. I'm gonna have to go look that up. I've heard on some other podcasts that there's some sort of Berenstein Bear conspiracy theory that it's actually pronounced and spelled differently, or I don't know. But I'm not familiar with the Berenstein Bears. I liked it when I was a kid.
I got a lot of those too, a lot of old ones. Yeah. A parenting pro tip: don't buy new kids books. Go to Half Price. They have like 1,000 of There's like 50 to 100 Berenstain Bears and Curious George books, and they've got dozens of them. And so you can get.
That is a good tip. That's an excellent tip. Speaking of not following that tip, I bought a brand new copy of that Greek mythology book that I used to read as a kid. It's like oversized, and it's
okay.
no, not Ethan Hamilton. It's like it's the last name is a D apostrophe something, but that's a delightful thing to read to your kid as well. And it's very nice how they sanitize it. Instead of saying like rape or marry or have sex, they'll say like carry away, love. Or they will say marry or love. They love each other.
Oh no.
It's they've really figured out how to twist those around a bit.
Yeah.
Like we read the story of Persephone last night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hades basically kidnaps or carries away Persephone and forces marriage upon Persephone there. And it's all just kind of ironed over as a delightful little tale.
Hades, Zeus, Poseidon, they just had too much love to give.
Yeah. Or take. I think it was more like taking.
Speaking of too much love, Vegas.
How's Las Vegas doing? Have you gotten propositioned by any working people, so to speak?
Oh, yes.
That's my memory of Vegas, is walking through those long hallways and being like, no, I'm not interested. No, thank you. Keep moving. No.
Yeah. So yes, I'm in Vegas. Yes, we're recording in. You guys are Central Time and I'm in Pacific, so it's a little early.
Yeah.
Going down the hall to the Starbucks to pick up some coffee. People. But 6:30 a.m. on a, well, it is Friday, so I guess it's okay. But there was a little bit of that. Just man, Vegas. And I
So
think
let's dive into this just for a little bit, right? Because we've got my team here at work has gotten to be pretty big. We've hired some existing evangelists, as they were called when they were at Oracle, and we've hired people from industry like Bridget and Casey who want to come over to the light side marketing. And they've been traveling to Vegas, and it's interesting to see them sort of like I don't think they're new at it, but it's fun to see them complain about the usual type of stuff. And I think I have been to Vegas so many times, I still notice it, but I sort of like bury it, just like my feelings and emotions. I just bury it.
well, yeah.
But I like reminders that the disgustingness of Las Vegas is still there. It's good to like be like, oh right, this is a horrible place.
Yeah, I mean it is literally. Well, I mean it's Sin City, but it is such an industrialized scale. It just boggles the mind. I mean, when you're flying in and you look out the window, and there are those Lego brick-looking buildings that just pop up, dwarfing everything around them. And then when you get there and you're in a hotel with 5,500 rooms next to a hotel with 6,000 rooms and next to one with 10,000 rooms, and there is a bar every floor, every 200 feet. And yesterday walking to my breakfast meeting, there was a gentleman in sweatpants, a tank top, and he had one of those yard of beer plastic things in a harness hanging around his neck with a straw. And I was just like, wow, you have no decency. But
yeah.
And it's so much of everyone in Vegas. There are so many people who are like, they're dressing up, in their minds, they're like, I'm going to dress up, I'm going to be fancy. And, there's some places where you're like, oh, those people are wearing, fancy clothes, and there's fancy stores everywhere. And there's people who think they're doing that and failing spectacularly. Like, a little tight, a little revealing. And that's a t-shirt as a tuxedo. That's not.
Yeah, to make sort of a hill country reference, it's as if you were the gods or maybe some titans, and you took the Comal and Guadalupe River in the depths of summer when people were tubing down them. You lifted them up. I guess Poseidon would do this, and you shook all those people out into the desert, and now all those people in their tubing attire are roaming the halls of Vegas. And they might stop and get some of those bling on your butt jeans and things like that, but it's classy.
And a whole lot of river beer.
Oh, river beer.
Yeah. I actually had to explain river beer the other day because we were at some fancy reception for some VC firm, and the beer selection was cans of river beer. I mean, it was Corona in a can, it was Shiner Bock in a can, and I was like,
do they have some Modelo?
Huh? No. After that, it went straight domestics, right? But I was like, what a terrible, everyone is, dressed up in suits and, VC and people. And it was like, well, this is horrible beer. I mean, I drink Shiner Bock in a can when I'm on the river. But yeah. So I drink the, nondescript red wine.
Now, what Vegas has going for it, as long as you don't get fucked by the cab driver who wants to take you from the airport by the highway.
That happened to me.
If they ask you on the highway, there's three things you can do. One, you can say no. This is what I advise. Just because out of self-respect for you and the world, because it's a ripoff. It doubles the fare, right? Because the Vegas airport is actually like right next to the Strip, which is one of the more fantastic parts of Vegas, right? Mm-hmm. The whole airport experience going to and from is wonderful. Best airport ever for that. I think. But, the cab driver will try to rip you off, right? Because, cab drivers. Why would we want to destroy that industry?
Hey, they have Uber now.
Yeah.
So
where was I going with this? So that part's good. And you just tell them to go to the back streets, and that's fine. I like that part. Now, also, the self-contained natures of a Vegas casino is actually pretty good for a conference, right? Like, in comparison, you could be in Orlando, right? You could be like at the Swan and Dolphin, which is actually not that bad, but Vegas is kind of interesting and there's a large variety. And as long as you have an expense account, you're fine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the restaurants are off the hook. There's so many good ones. That's nice.
Yeah. So that part's good, and like they generally know how to run things. You get a good workout running around. I mean, it has a lot to offer if you can sort of like
Step
put
over.
like a piece of tape around your peripheral vision and just focus on the tech people and not like the detritus around you.
Wow.
I'm really winning some friends in this episode.
We went a little bit classist here.
Classist.
But I think the summary of this entire conversation, Cote, is this. It's like Orlando is a fake world, mostly for children. That is very inconvenient for conferences. Vegas is a fake world for adults.
Who are
that
children.
can be fun, but it is kind of, for a conference, it is very played out. Like this leads me back to like the place you want to generally go is San Francisco, because it's just a regular city. You can like be part of the conference, do the thing, but then there's enough things happening that you can get away from it. You can
I've been to Chicago many times recently. Chicago seems like a great city to have a conference.
Yeah, I think like Chicago. I think San Diego's a great one. I think
San Diego's good. Travel is bad to San Diego, but
I think Chicago's sort of. I'm surprised there aren't more tech, because it's a nice like meet in the middle kind of.
You can't go there like 6 months out of the year.
Yeah, but still during the summer it would be fantastic.
You know what might be a good place for conferences? Austin,
yeah, that would be good.
They have OSCON coming here next year. Just as a little PSA, they had to call for papers open. Closes sometime mid-November. You should submit something, people.
OpenStack will be there next year.
Here's what I would like to do. I like being on panels. Someone needs to propose a panel on which I am on, and then my work will be done. Being on a panel is the best. You just show up and you just talk. I don't want to moderate a panel. I want to be on a panel.
All right. After the show, you and I'll we'll brainstorm on some OSCON panel talks and get some questions in.
I actually like that as I was gonna say, I want to just keep going your panel theme and just say, like, I would love there to be a conference that no PowerPoint was allowed, right? Just zero. Like that would be a fun format. Like we're gonna have sessions and there will be no PowerPoint, no presentation at all. So someone do that. That would be a fantastic, or a track. Maybe a whole conference is too much. The no PowerPoint track would be awesome.
How about no slides with words?
No PowerPoint at all, because I'm tired of like everyone just starts putting up, the images, and it's that's played out too. It's like, okay, we've all seen that, right? Like just tell me what you want to say.
I've always been a fan of the Ignite karaoke that your buddy Andrew Clay Schaefer does. Where you don't know what your slides are and you stand up and talk in front of them. That's always fun.
That makes sense. A little improv theater with the PPTX.
Yeah.
So you're in Vegas for AWS. They announced a crap ton. Amazon Web Services reInvent.
Yes.
Did they ever explain what that colon's doing in there?
Messing up copy everywhere for marketing. They took the people who used to work at VMware now name conferences for Amazon. I don't know where it came from. But it is
okay.
It's I think there were 18,500, up from 14,000 last year.
Wow. Now I have never been to a reInvent. You've been to many of them, Matt Ray, right?
This is my second, and
so many.
Well, and this is my first as like actually going to a keynote or two. The other ones were just meetings. And this one is 80% meetings and a few little talks here and there. It's big. It's the same place that I was here earlier for an IBM conference. EMC World was here. I mean, the same venue.
Which place is it at?
Sands.
I've never been there. Huh. Man, I'm just missing out this week. It looked like a lot of the announcements were like data related. Is that how, like, there's a ton of them that are like, ship your data to us, do some BI, like.
So Matt Ray, I'd like to play a little game with you.
Okay.
You're our man on the scene. We have all these things here. I just want to read the name. I want you to tell me, do we need to care about it, and if why, right? Amazon Kinesis fire hose. Do we care?
Apparently, yes.
Why do we care? Why should we care about this?
What it's streaming processing? Is that what Kinesis is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it feels like this is one of many, many streaming processing engines. So why do we care about this one?
Because when Amazon runs something, it has really, really good uptime and quality of service, and people are pushing such tremendous amounts of data into Amazon that they don't want to bother with machines that process it. They want to just, it's trying to scale things up elastically, manually, or, I mean, not manually, but even things with like, elastic groups or, Kubernetes or things like that is just untenable at some of the volumes I've been hearing about people's data going in. And things like Kinesis are just, you just have to do it. I mean, trying to so many of their announcements have been around how to process more data faster because you have more of it here.
So I'd just say this back to you to say, hey, everyone stop writing their proprietary streaming frameworks and just use this. If you're going to use AWS, just use this, and that way you don't have to spend all the time building one yourself.
I mean, yeah, I actually had breakfast with some analysts and folks from like a NoSQL database, and the question was like, well, what do you do when Amazon offers your product as a service? And the answer is like, well, you either out feature them, you handle multi-cloud on-prem support. Amazon just doesn't care about anything but Amazon, and rightfully so. But yeah, there's just so many data products are in the crosshairs, but there's such a tremendously large market there, and with, to put on the Internet of Things hat, like with the explosive amounts of data that are being generated, you're going to need tools that just scale ridiculously. And
so in oh, sorry, go on.
No, please interrupt me.
In your experience, what is all this data?
Well, so somebody driving a Tesla is just spewing out gigabytes of data a day, and
sure.
And that performance data, telemetry data, a lot of it is sent off the car. It actually, cell phones out, and it's hitting towers and sending data about your car out all the time. I mean, this is just a data source with wheels. I mean, it's it's constantly sending all this data back, and people don't have to discard it. They just store it, index it, and it gets cheaper, and data gravity sucks it all in, and they never ever can leave. But more data is being generated by just things you don't think about, and things like you used to have data retention policies, and now people just throw their hands up in the air because in 3 years you might want to go back and mine that old data.
And I mean, are you actually? So this is the annual IDC EMC. There's a shit ton of data out there. Report that we see, right? And but you, in your experience being the Immortium Joe of cloud, like do you like see people using that amount of data, or is it like this theoretic thing?
No, I've had a lot of.
I mean, so for example, right? You could go to any Texas State Department, and they have a lot of data, right? Or like, just think of any run-of-the-mill, in my vernacular, any donkey company. And it's like, sure, they have lots of data, but like, are they actually like doing something with it? Like, I get it. Like GE generates, oodles of data on a jet engine per whatever, right?
Exactly.
Like, and so does Tesla and all these people. But like so here's my real question. Like, is Amazon creating all these data services for like 50 companies? Or is it for general purpose use?
It's like for general purpose use. Yeah, that's what's pretty crazy about it is, the donkey companies, if you will, they their data was they had it well defined in advance. They're like, this is what our data is going to look like, and we will store it in this format, and we will understand our capacity planning, and we will have kind of this nice linear growth, and it's like, oh, and if we hit this many customers, the data does this, and it's what's the paradox or whatever, where when something becomes
Zeno's paradox.
Yeah, Zeno's paradox, where if
I don't know, that's just
that's not it. That's not it. but the thing when consumption approaches, when you stop thinking about consumption as a limiting factor, people find new things to do with it, and storage has gotten that way. It used to be, oh, we have to worry about, going to EMC and asking for, $40 million worth of SANs to handle next year's data. And now they're kind of like, hey, let's just suck it all in, and we'll pay, OpEx on it. And, it can be more expensive, but all that data is available, and it's somebody else's problem.
Right.
And then you lose the expenditures of people having to maintain your data centers and expensive people, and
yeah.
I do see a lot of, though, I would just say, like, it's very in vogue to save and store huge amounts of data. My guess is most of the data goes unanalyzed and unused. Now, maybe one day, and that's all, it's like one of those things, maybe in the future, people will figure it out. But
no, I mean,
the vast majority of things I see are that.
I had a conversation yesterday with a satellite imaging company, and they are generating petabytes of data a day, and they were trying to do a migration strategy.
They need Snowball.
Well, they bought another company, and he's like, how am I going to get 70 petabytes up?
Yeah.
Of data? And he's like, I've already been talking to my AWS rep about getting hundreds of snowballs. And if you miss the announcements, the snowball is how big was it? 40.
Isn't it like several petabytes?
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe he had exabytes. I don't know. He had some ridiculous amount of data, and but what the snowball is it's a very durable SSD that you plug into your data center, fill it with data, ship it to Amazon, and they bring it online for you.
Right. It's the anti-data gravity device. Otherwise
no, it's
known
not
as,
though. No,
well,
it's
in the sense that you can move the data, right? Like everyone's always like, oh, you've got to move processing to where the data is. It's like, or you could call FedEx and move the data really fast. Like it's the old
but
like the bandwidth of a station wagon going 60 miles an hour is infinite.
Full of tapes, right? Yeah. But no, it makes Amazon that much stickier though. There's no exit snowball. There's not like, hey, can you send those things back? We want to ship these over to Azure.
Once delivered, the snowball melts.
Exactly. I mean, because there's no way you can move that much data. You can't pay enough and cross-link fees and all the. You just you cannot move that data out.
So it's the ultimate lock-in strategy.
Exactly, and
you're basically can never move.
Yeah, on that note, to change the topic only minutely, like as I was reading through all of the Amazon stuff, I was like, man, someone like, it's little wonder they probably hired some Microsoft people who dusted off some printouts of the Microsoft playbook, right? Like build all of the middleware and services that you need so that anything you would ever want to do with, let me see if this statement's accurate, pretty much anything a business would ever want to do with software and therefore computers, there's a pretty good, if not great, thing of it, like fully integrated into the stack with its own name for everything. It's sort of like you never need to leave your MSDN subscription. It's all on these DVDs.
Yeah, but to finish the story,
nice.
Yeah, but to finish the story, so they have tons of data on Amazon, and some of their algorithms changed, and they just went back and reprocessed all the existing data that that it comes in and they process it, but they're like, well, we need to go back and reprocess years and years of photographic data because we have better algorithms today.
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
Being able to do that stuff, I mean, Google is probably the only person who can come close with like their nearline stuff, but yeah.
And William over there, and I'm not going to insult him by saying his last name that starts with a V, but I used to talk with him back in the Red Monk day, and I think he works on the Google Cloud data stuff, and it was fun to see him being like, "Hey guys, check out our data processing stuff in Twitter,"
Yeah.
like he was reminding people. But no, that's good to point out. It is. I think I'm always interested in the ever increasing amount of data. And what that means for changing the landscape. We'll see what happens. That's why I was asking about like how many people actually use it, and is it just sort of like a niche concern of companies, or like now everything you said I agree with. Like theoretically, right? Like every company has a lot of data that, as Brandon pointed out, they don't do anything with, and you could unlock all sorts of stuff. And my question is just more of like, it's kind of, I can't think of a stupid Cote-ish analogy, but like, there's all sorts of things that I could be doing that I don't do. Right.
Yeah.
And like, so is it like, are these companies actually doing that? And if they are, like, just imagining let's say, also what I like about what's interesting, I should say, about they also have a BI thing called QuickSight, or business intelligence, which, I don't know the BI market, so who knows how it compares to Tableau and Quick. And is it Quick? I used to know this market really well, and all the other BI people, but whatever, it's a thing. Usually those are really expensive tools.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can open that to the mid-market and the small market, and it's also good enough for the enterprise, there's a lot of disruption to be had there. And it's also not infrastructure. It's an end user, like it's a SaaS basically, to have a BI tool, which would be, there's a lot of potential there. It's just a matter of if people actually use it or not.
And at the scale they operate at, they said they had over 1 million customers, and maybe that's for the life of the for all time. I don't know. They didn't break it down for us, but if you think about somebody with 1 million customers, and you have a super esoteric product, but somehow you still have 2,000 users. How many small software companies would love to have 2,000 customers?
Yeah.
And so Amazon can hit every single little niche, even if they only have 10,000 users of a certain feature, because that's still a lot of users.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Matt, you were there. I guess my take on watching all these announcements from a distance is, the general approach for all of this was, hey, we're going to continue. Amazon is going to continue to march up and provide more and more enterprise features, enticing large companies. And I saw, obviously you could kind of see that they strategically picked a lot of very large companies to be part of, the announcement and traditional things. So that's the part I think that does, again, of a smart way. Amazon clearly knows where the money is, and they have got all the startups, and that community is probably well already familiar with them. But it's the Citibanks and the insurance companies that are going to pay the bills coming forward. So it seems like when I look at the snowball, like all these things seem very, very driven by large enterprises, and just their mission to make AWS the preferred enterprise computing platform of choice. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, totally. There were a tremendous number of very enterprise specific features. Things like, and so many of the talking points were, let's stick a fork in Oracle's eye, or it was just, I mean, literally they had making fun of Oracle on stage, and they brought out the MariaDB for RDS, so you can get out from any potential MySQL problems. There was the schema migration service, where they're just like, oh yeah, you got some stuff in Oracle, we'll move that for you, and we'll do it at scale, and tied to Snowball or whatever to get all your data out of your rack. There was the dedicated hosts. I mean, Amazon is now a VPS provider. It's like you can actually get a machine, and what that does is it undercuts Oracle's licensing. because Oracle like gouges you like crazy apparently if you run your Oracle on AWS. But now you can say, oh, it's actually tied to a machine. And
all right, yeah.
And then I thought, kind of not in an Amazon announcement, but kind of interesting was the Rackspace announcement of what their fanatical support for AWS.
Yeah.
Which is sort of in its, I don't know, is that like defeat or is that like genius? You know what I mean? You just got to go with the customer. I don't know. I thought that was a really interesting, like, what does that mean?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, so I talked with a lot of service providers and MSPs over the last couple of days, and so many of them told the same story. How they used to be an ISP, they moved up to some virtual. They started doing some hosting. They started doing some private cloud. They thought in 2009 that they would run their own cloud. They threw up some VMware and offered it as a service, and then the tide just overcame them, and now they're MSPs running on AWS. And
yeah, so it's interesting.
They make so much money doing that.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of an interesting that AWS in itself is so whatever big and complicated that it is actually viable for pretty large companies to just provide support for it, right?
Yeah.
Which is like I don't know, it's almost like a sign that you've become so big that like some of these things that are small businesses to you are like entire product lines for other companies. So I thought that was kind of interesting too.
Yeah, definitely.
Plus, it was a chance to read some Robert Scoble typing. Which, it was lengthy.
A citing
but
of Robert Scoble.
As someone who writes lengthy stuff myself, it was still very tight, if you will. It was tight length. And there was a funny comment on his Google Plus thing where someone's like, "Whoa, that was long." And he was like, "Yeah, that's what I do. I'm very excited about this. Publish." It's just like I like the way he handled that heckler. And he I excerpted a little quote here. What did he say? Support and managed services are different. This is why Amazon has a managed service program. It's just like he elucidates why support is a nice thing for Rackspace. And I think at this point I admire Rackspace for figuring it out every quarter. Like there's been a lot of times where like they could have things were not going well, but they're still around. That's great. They're bobbing and weaving and figuring out what they should be doing.
But does the stock market like MSPs?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Hey, that brings me to the other thing that I want to ask you. And Cote, I don't know, you may just have to mute yourself. You may be so conflicted when I bring up this topic that you may need 5 minutes of silence. But with all the Amazon stuff going on is then the rumor of Dell being acquired by EMC, which I thought was like super interesting and funny. I was like, wow, this is interesting. It's kind of going on at the same time. So Matt, so for everyone that doesn't know, I think Cote is like conflicted 17 different ways on this subject. So I don't know, Cote, I don't know if you can even say anything. I don't know if you
I don't really have I have a lot to say in my head.
But I was gonna say, but Matt, you and I are totally unconflicted.
Oh yeah.
And also uninformed, which is the perfect conversation for us.
That's how podcasts are born.
I was going to say, I do think it's very interesting, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think the EMC Dell thing, if it is true, and I think it is true, or at least they're floating it, like someone with some real knowledge is floating it. I was like, that does make sense to me.
But didn't that float like 9 months ago?
I think it's been out there a couple times, but I felt like this time makes sense. Dell's been private for a while. They've probably straightened their financials out in a way that's meaningful to EMC, and with all the stuff happening like Cisco and just in general, right? There's like this whole move in Oracle, like bringing all these things together. I was like, I can see why EMC would eventually, want to do this or have this business in house.
I don't know. I'm completely uninformed, but Kote can take the tactic. I was talking to a gentleman from a private equity firm, and whenever we mentioned one of his holdings, he'd say, "Well, Google News says."
That's right. Google News says, right? So yeah, so Google News. So I thought that was an interesting. I think I'm going to say it feels real to me this time. I was like, I think it makes sense. So I'm going to see.
But that's the problem with the Google News says answer. If you hit Google News, if I say IBM buys
Well, then I'm not going to be able to talk.
Oh, okay, sorry. Bad example.
And no one, you're going to talk to yourself if you keep talking.
No, I could say something like, Docker to buy VMware, right? And you're like, wait, what? That's retarded. And then when you put it into Google News, you will find an article someone has written.
True, but I think you have to look at, I don't know, I don't have to go look at the original reporting. This one seemed to be more of the official channels. Like somebody with some actual knowledge was obviously speaking to a real reporter with some journalistic ethics that was reporting on it. So
I was thinking,
all right. Anyway, Coach A, I think we're done.
My book.
You come back in.
Good chapter. Yeah. Anyhow, yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. But before I assume we should stick to the top of the hour. Do you guys have a hard stop?
No, I don't.
We usually we prearrange that before we start recording, but we were just okay. Well, we go a little bit over, if that's okay with you guys.
Oh, yeah.
But I was at the local Innotech conference yesterday here in Austin, sort of a Texas and Oklahoma affair. I'm always a little curious about that conference, but they got Jez Humble to come give a keynote, and the local Austin and one guy from Dallas, sort of like DevOps people, spoke at it. So that was interesting. I think it was actually a nice conference. It's very clever for the people who are like in marketing. I mostly went to like scope it out for like marketing sort of stuff. They do it very cleverly where it's actually like 5 different conferences, including a SharePoint conference. So they get around, I think, 1,300 or so attendees with one expo hall, right? So you get for that kind of conference, it's a weird mixture having a table, because you'll have like the local MSP, not MSP, but local geeks on call. And then you'll also have like the physical security people and the New Relic, right? So there's like a weird mixture of people there, but it was actually very well attended by what seemed like lots of local, I would say like maybe right below management layer people at local companies, which includes the state government, UT, and several like big companies. So like it's a good mix of traditionally kind of hard to reach people who are influential in the technical sales process. So I have no idea how much they charge for like a sponsorship or a pay for speech thing. That would determine a lot of the worth of it. But I could see that you could get some good marketing action out of that.
Yeah.
And it brought out all the local people like myself who would go to these things. So it was nice to meet up with them and chat with them.
Well, reInvent was a little different. The expo hall.
Wait, they have like 2,000 people there or so?
No, I think there might have been 650 booths. Maybe I'm just making that number up. That sounds like a number I heard, and it was more over the top than a lot of other things I've seen. I mean, VMworld, and the booths there were huge and packed and crowded. This one just seemed to have just miles and miles of small booths, like
right
10 by 10s, and man, there were a lot of them. And
yeah, it's a visualization of the Ben Thompson rainforest theory, which I guess aptly for Amazon, which is like there will be a few vendors, like basically an oligarchy. I don't think he uses that word, of vendors who dominate or have the large share of stuff, and then there's a bunch of tiny vendors who basically latch on to that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that I guess that is kind of Amazon's goal, is like, I get your money, I get your money, I get your money. It's all down. And then you need just, and then basically you seed the stuff you don't want to do to just small vendors. And yeah, I mean, if you're a king and the way you manage your own kingdom is making sure that none of your underlings ever get too big, I think that's been proven to be a viable strategy over the eons.
Little Amazon's been reading Game of Thrones as their playbook.
Yeah, or just European history, like
like serfs, pay your tithe to the kings of Amazon.
And we've got a whole certification system: Duke, Count, Baron, Earl.
No, I mean the partner summit. So I went to the global partner summit, and there were 4,500 people in the keynote for the partner summit, which had restricted admission. It's like, it was a little impressive. and worked out well for us. I think we had 9 shout outs in the partner keynote. So
oh, nice.
Yeah. It was marketing for Chef did very well for themselves.
Well, so the last thing I want to mention before we wrap up and go to recommendations is I decided I would move my website from Squarespace back to WordPress because I moved back. I used to have my website on Tumblr, which so far is an awesome experience. As far as like Tumblr has the best experience for like publishing. It's really fast on iOS and on the web browser. Like it's as if the people who are designing the publishing tools for Tumblr actually use them, right? And kind of understand what it is you would want in publishing. I didn't like Tumblr because it's basically like a weird wall. It's just too much of a walled garden thing, to use an old man term, right? And it just like makes me feel bad. But I don't know. I should probably use Tumblr. They're so weird. Thinking. Like they put a bunch of random numbers in every URL. I don't know. But anyway, so I moved to Squarespace because advertising works. And all these podcasting people have been telling me it was awesome. And you know what? It's not awesome.
Oh.
Like it's if you want to host static pages, right? Let me put it this way. Let's take the set of all things you would want to do with the web page. And let's subtract out custom software development. That's no problem. That's a rare thing to do. And let's also subtract out blogging. And if you remove that, I can see that Squarespace would be pretty awesome, right? If you were just like a normal person, not an extraordinary one like myself, but if you were just like someone who wanted to publish a website and get that stuff out there and you weren't going to dink with it very much, it has great landing pages. It seems to integrate with stuff I didn't test, so everything's great. But for blogging, it's horrible. It's a horrible blogging platform. I don't think anyone who writes like the blogging software uses it. And if they do, there's some books I would like them to read about how to design software. So, Squarespace.
Well,
thanks for all your support of the podcasting community.
Where are you hosting your WordPress blog then?
Just at WordPress.com. I mean, they have a lot of problems, and which I will go over here briefly. But in general, migrating the blog to it was actually pretty good, and there was minimal breakage of things, right? Like when I moved from Tumblr to Squarespace, oh my God. Because Tumblr does weird URLs and things like that, like lots of stuff broke. But migrating from Squarespace to WordPress actually was pretty good because Squarespace does this too, but WordPress does this kind of thing where if you go to a URL and that URL doesn't exist, it tries to like figure out the right URL. So, like WordPress likes to put the full date and then the stub, like the name of your page in there. Squarespace doesn't really do that. But what WordPress will do is like find that stub and see if it can find it and then serve that up. And generally that works. So things work pretty well. And it also has pages. So when I say go to kote.io/SDT, you can do that on WordPress, right? Like, and that's nice. And their themes are fine. So actually WordPress.com is fine. And I think it's like $90 a year. Now they do have a 24-hour turnaround on support questions, which Squarespace was actually really good at support. That part's true. So the bad things about WordPress, I think people who program it probably publish on it, but they should publish on it a lot more, right? I think
you
maybe
look at WP Engine.
No,
That's
I didn't.
The other
yeah. So I have two big complaints about WordPress. One, and they're very niche things. One, they don't have an iOS share panel thing, right? So like you can't like be reading something as I am and say like, I want to post this to my blog and open like up the share panel thing or whatever that's called in iOS. Like it just doesn't exist, which is kind of like, come on guys, like what are you thinking? Like you got to have that. Tumblr has that and it's awesome, right? The other thing is like, so I use my domain names. Kote.io is like a catch-all email address, and they don't really allow that at WordPress. Like the way that you map your name there, you have to map your DNS stuff there, which means it's just a shit show, right? Like as far as like what I want to do, it's actually very easy, like mapping, but they only allow you to have 5 email addresses forwarded, where it's just like, why not just allow me to send every piece of email I get sent to this domain name to an address, like every single domain name register in existence except hover.com. like it's just like, why not do that? Now, what I think I should probably do is I can pay more money to pay for a mail server, and then I can map the MX records to my WordPress domain name. But then it's just like I have to read a man page, and Matt Ray has to tell me what to do, and failure is.
Okay, the only win here for you is this. I'll make it very simple. You need to make so much money or work at a place where you're completely abstracted from the content management.
There you go.
Because content management is like its own version of hell. Like,
you know what?
There is no answer to this question, because I look forward in about 10 weeks, Cote's rant about WordPress plugins and how they all break and don't work. Because it's like,
I used
it's
to
like its own,
that.
WordPress becomes its own version of hell at some point. You're just like, this is a platform where people just write random pieces of code and nothing really ever works together.
Yeah, well,
that's always the end with WordPress.
So I used to be like that. Like I used to run my own WordPress thing, and at Red Monk we did. And yes, I agree. And WordPress has any CMS system has a certain amount of Buddhism you have to accept with it, which is like, if desire is the root of all suffering, what you're telling me is I'm going to have less fun in life. I want to have more fun. Yes, but you will suffer more. But I want to have more fun. Yes, but you will suffer more. Maybe I should have less fun. I'll suffer less. So I try not to think about customizing WordPress too much, and therefore I suffer less. But yes, the more that you want to customize it, the more you're going to suffer. Like all I want to do is make pages that have URLs so that I can say, go to cote.io/pivotal. And then I want to publish blog stuff. That's all I want to do. I don't want to customize stuff anymore.
You need to get to the nirvana that we've achieved. You write your stuff in Markdown, and somebody in marketing formats it for you.
Yeah, that's a whole other rant I could go on. All that I want is like I want Tumblr without the wackadoodle URLs, right? And the ability to like have it be a normal CMS system. Like I really like Tumblr. I like the publishing experience of Tumblr, but it's weird. It's like I'm.
All right then.
So with that, how about recommendations for this week? What do you got for us, Brandon?
I have been obsessed with just kind of long form. I like long form interviews, and therefore I'm going to recommend two podcasts. One, not surprisingly, called the Long Form Podcast, which is great interviews with usually journalists or people that have been in media, how they got into it, what they do, and kind of what they see is happening. But I think they're just really well done. So I check out the Long Form Podcast. And then if you're looking for like a topical long form, one of the guys that does the long form podcast was actually hired by the Cleveland Browns NFL football team. And he's doing a long form series of interviews on a podcast called the Brownscast with a bunch of people that play or work for the Cleveland Browns. So it's definitely a sports vibe to it, but it's not like your shock jock or daily, what's happening with the team. It's more like, what's it like to work for a football team? What are all the different jobs? How do people get those jobs? What do they do? So it's real interesting. It's kind of a real interesting look behind the scenes. So if you like long form interviews, you got one for journalism and you got one for football players and other things. So
you don't need to be a Browns fan.
Don't need to be a Browns fan. You'll definitely enjoy it. And I will say that I'll just give one more plug there. The second episode, if you've ever wanted to hear a story of perseverance, like, getting to the next level and what you're willing to sacrifice, the second episode is about a guy that took a very long path to the NFL, and it's kind of inspiring. So check it out.
Well, that's nice. Maybe he can open up the keynote of some large tech conference in Vegas.
That would be cool. I like that. That would be fun.
Well, my recommendation is a place I ate yesterday, which I'm sure people know about who don't have kids and still go out to eat. But I was downtown at the Innotech thing, and someone told me I should go have lunch at Easy Tiger, it's over there on 6th Street. It was nice. Like they have their own like artisanal sausage and sandwiches. And the person I was eating with, they said, "Oh, I figured out what Easy Tiger is. It's a fusion of New Orleans and Asian food, right? Like Tiger and Big Easy," which and it was right. So they had like moufletta, like pho moufletta. They didn't have that, but like they had mouflettas and Asian stuff. And I had some sort of crazy duck sausage and the usual sort of thing. But it was really good. And it's also I haven't been downtown in a while, but we have sort of like Austin's Forgotten River walk down there. I even don't remember what it's called. Waller Creek.
Waller Creek, yeah.
They've kind of built up some nice stuff there. The water still looks pretty grody and polluted, but you can kind of walk along there during the day, and it's a nice thing. Like the Easy Tiger has like a patio that overlooks it that you can eat on. There's actually like a small little river walk that goes through downtown Austin, which is just delightful.
So I guess the mosquitoes aren't eating you alive, and it's not, filled with homeless people, because that's how it used to be.
Yeah. Those two things didn't come up.
Oh, okay. Well, then
yeah,
sounds good.
But yeah, the weather's nice for eating outside in Austin now. Enjoy and get yourself some fancy get yourself a $9 piece of sausage with some purple mustard.
Oh,
and expense it. That's my advice. How about yourself, Matt?
I don't have real strong picks this week.
Do we ever?
Well, there you go. Eating on other people's expense accounts, that's my pick. Especially in Vegas.
Eating on others' expense accounts. Yeah. I've typed that in. Well, as follow-up, several people followed up and said that they had your exact Bose headphones, and they said they were great. So that's a double, triple score underline. It was a little 100 with the little red line underlines there. Yeah, people say those are good things. They're worth the price.
I use them on the flight down here, and I'll be using them on the flight back tomorrow and next week when I fly to the Chef Community Summit. So,
well, on that note, let me tell you a little advice that I think David Berlin gave me. One of the old tech reporters. Used to be a tech reporter. Now he's moved on to something more profitable, I think. I've kind of lost track of him. But I remember I was hanging out with him and James Governor of Red Monk a while ago. And he's like, yeah, I used to go to Vegas a lot back during the Comdex days and stuff like that. And every single time the plane was leaving, I would look back and say, I can't believe I escaped that place alive. So good luck with that. When you take your flight off, you can be happy that you've escaped Vegas. And as always, thanks for listening. This has been Software Defined Talk, which you can find at softwaredefinedtalk.com or, as mentioned earlier, cote.io/SDT. And as this is episode 46, you can find the full show notes at cote.io/SDT46. Now, you can also look into get 2 free months of hosting with the cloud platform, like doing all your crazy programming on top of cloud stuff. You can run it on AWS, where we run it. The public instance, you can run it on your own infrastructure. If you don't want to snowball all your data around, whatever you like. If you go to cote.io/pivotal, you can get more about that and get 2 free months using it. You still have some community summit stuff coming up, Matt Ray?
Yeah, the Seattle Summit, I believe, is sold out. It's next week.
So everyone who hasn't registered, you lose.
No, I was going to say London.
For that one.
London is November 3rd and 4th, and if you use the discount code software, people will know you listen to our show.
Yeah, that'll be great.
And you'll save some money, and I'll get to brag about how many fans we have. So.
Yeah, and you can find that all in the show notes at cote.io/SDT46. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.